Have you ever trusted someone so completely that the thought of their betrayal felt like a fantasy, something that only happens in movies? I had that trust. His name was Liam, and he was my world, the father of my unborn child. Then, one night, he shattered that world with a confession that would lead us all to a sterile hospital room awaiting a single piece of paper. He had a plan. His mistress, pregnant with what he called his legacy, would raise the baby. But he never planned for the truth sealed inside that envelope, a truth that would redefine betrayal itself. Life, for a time, was a beautifully curated photograph. Our home in the suburbs of Charlotte, a two-story colonial with pristine white shutters and a porch swing, was the perfect frame. Inside, every detail was carefully chosen, the faint scent of lavender and lemon from my cleaning supplies, the rich aroma of the dark roast coffee. Liam loved brewing every morning, the soft cashmere throws draped over the armchair where I'd read for hours. We were the picture of modern success, Evelyn and Liam Peterson, a partnership that friends envied and family lauded. I was a freelance architect specializing in sustainable home design, which allowed me the flexibility to work from a sun-drenched office overlooking our manicured backyard. Liam was a rising star at Sterling Wentworth, a competitive investment firm downtown. He was sharp, ambitious, and devastatingly handsome, with a laugh that could disarm a boardroom and a smile that had made me fall for him on our very first date. We had a rhythm, a comfortable cadence to our days. Mornings were for quiet coffee and shared sections of the newspaper. Evenings were for debriefing our days over a meal I'd cooked, his hand often finding mine across the oak dining table. We were building an empire of two, and after 5 years of marriage, we were finally ready for the next most significant step. I found out I was pregnant on a crisp autumn morning. The two pink lines on the test felt like the final perfect brushstroke on our masterpiece. When I told Liam that evening, setting a tiny pair of booties next to his dinner plate, his reaction was everything I had dreamed of. He swept me up in his arms, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "Evelyn," he whispered into my hair, his voice thick with emotion. An heir to the Peterson empire. We spent the next few months in a blissful bubble. We painted the nursery a soft, gender-neutral sage green. We assembled a crib, our laughter echoing in the small room as we struggled with the instructions. Liam would come home from work, press his ear to my growing belly, and talk to our baby, telling it about his day, about his dreams for our future. He was attentive, loving, perfect. Too perfect. The first crack in the facade was almost invisible. A late night at the office he couldn't quite explain. A new password-protected folder on our shared laptop labeled "Personal Finances" that he brushed off as a surprise for me. I was a trusting person by nature, and a pregnant one at that. I dismissed the prickles of unease as hormonal paranoia, the kind my mother and married friends had warned me about. Love, I believed, was a fortress. Ours was impenetrable. The night the fortress crumbled was a Tuesday in my 7th month. It was raining, a relentless drumming torrent that matched the sudden frantic beat of my heart. Liam had been late for 3 hours, his phone going straight to voicemail. When he finally walked through the door, he looked like a ghost. His expensive suit was soaked, his hair was plastered to his forehead, and his face was a pale, drawn mask of anguish. "Liam, what is it? What happened?" I asked, rushing to him, my hands fluttering with worry. He didn't answer immediately. He just stood there in the entryway, dripping onto the hardwood floor, his gaze fixed on a point somewhere over my shoulder. The silence was heavy, suffocating. "I need to tell you something," he finally said, his voice hollow. "Please, sit down." The dreaded words. My blood ran cold. I sank onto the edge of the sofa, my hand instinctively going to my belly, a protective shield for our son. He took a deep breath, the kind a man takes before a firing squad. "I've done something terrible, Evelyn. Something unforgivable." My mind raced through a Rolodex of catastrophes. A market crash. Did he lose all our money? Was he fired? Nothing could have prepared me for what came next. I had an affair. He said the words falling like stones into the quiet room. The air left my lungs. The curated photograph of our life shattered into a million tiny sharp pieces. An affair. The word itself was ugly. An intruder in our beautiful home. Who? The question was a raw whisper. He flinched. Her name is Sophia. Sophia Collins. She was a consultant at my firm. The details came out in a torrent of shame-laced confession. It had been going on for nearly a year. It started as late-night drinks after a stressful project and spiraled into clandestine meetings in sterile hotel rooms. He swore it was over, that it meant nothing, that he had ended it weeks ago because he couldn't live with the guilt, especially not now with our baby coming. I was numb, a spectator to the demolition of my own life. Tears streamed down my face, but I couldn't make a sound. Betrayal was a physical thing, a cold, heavy weight pressing down on my chest, making it impossible to breathe. "I'm so sorry, Evie," he pleaded finally, moving, kneeling in front of me, his hands reaching for mine. I recoiled as if burned. "We can get through this. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust." But he wasn't finished. The confession had a postscript, a final devastating blow that would prove the affair was far from over. He took another shuddering breath. "There's more," he choked out. "The reason I had to tell you tonight. The reason it's all come apart." He looked up at me, his eyes swimming in a cocktail of fear and despair. "Sophia, she's pregnant, Evelyn. She's pregnant too." The world tilted on its axis. Pregnant. The word echoed in the space between us, a grotesque parody of the joy we had shared just months before. Two women carrying the children of the same man, our due dates only weeks apart. The irony was so cruel, so staggeringly painful, it felt like a physical blow. I stared at him, kneeling on our expensive rug, the very picture of a broken man. But in that moment, I felt no pity, only a searing, white-hot rage that burned away the shock and the tears. "Get out," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "Evelyn, please. Get out of my house." Each word was a shard of ice. He eventually retreated, leaving me alone in the ruins of our life. The next few days were a blur of suffocating grief. I called my older sister, Olivia, who was on a plane from Denver within hours. She found me exactly where Liam had left me, curled on the sofa, clutching a pillow to my stomach, as if I could physically protect my son from the poison that had seeped into our lives. Olivia was my opposite in every way, fiercely pragmatic, brutally honest, and possessing a spine of pure steel. She didn't offer platitudes. She made tea, forced me to eat, and listened as I recounted the entire sordid story. "The low-life cheating scumbag," she muttered, pacing my living room like a caged tiger. I never trusted that slick smile. "Okay, Evie, first thing tomorrow, we're seeing a lawyer. The best divorce lawyer in Charlotte." But before we could, Liam reappeared. He didn't use his key. He rang the doorbell, a small, pathetic gesture of respect. Olivia answered, blocking the doorway with her body. "You have 5 minutes to say whatever you need to say to my sister," she warned, her arms crossed. "Then you're leaving." Liam looked even worse than before. He had the desperate, hunted look of an animal caught in a trap of its own making. He didn't come to apologize again. Not really. He came with a plan, a solution, a proposition so audacious, so utterly devoid of empathy, that I would later wonder if I was living in a nightmare. He sat stiffly on the armchair opposite me, Olivia standing guard by the fireplace. "Evelyn," he began, his voice rehearsed, "I've been doing a lot of thinking. There's no easy way out of this. I've made a terrible mess, and 2 innocent children are going to be born into it." He paused as if expecting me to agree. I remained silent, my face a stone mask. "Divorce," he continued, "would be catastrophic. Not just for us, but for the children. Financially, it would ruin me. My position at the firm is precarious. A scandal like this would destroy my career. Our assets are tied up. You wouldn't get what you deserve. Our son would grow up in a broken home. Get to the point. Liam Olivia snapped. He flinched, but ploughed on his eyes, fixed on me. Sophia, she has nothing. No family support, a low-paying job. She can't provide for a child on her own. She's terrified. A problem of your own making, I said, my voice flat. Yes, he admitted readily. My problem. And I have a solution. One that protects everyone, especially our family. This family. He leaned forward, his hands clasped together so tightly, his knuckles were white. We stay together, Evelyn. We raise our son here in this house as a family. We present a united front. No one ever has to know about this. I stared at him, bewildered. And what about your other child, Liam? The one Sophia is carrying? Do you just pretend it doesn't exist? A strange, almost manic light entered his eyes. No, of course not. It's my child, my blood. It deserves to be cared for. That's the crux of the plan. He took a deep breath. Sophia has agreed. After the baby is born, she will sign over her parental rights. She'll move away. I'll give her a settlement enough to start a new life somewhere else. And she'll give the baby to us. The room went completely silent. Even Olivia was stunned into stillness. He wanted to bring his mistress's baby into our home, for me to raise. You're insane, I whispered the words, catching in my throat. No, I'm being practical, he insisted, his voice rising with a frantic energy. Don't you see? It's the perfect solution. My child is raised by its father. Our son grows up with his brother or sister. We avoid a public, humiliating divorce. Sophia gets a clean break. Everyone wins. He looked at me, his face a mask of desperate hopefulness, as if he had just proposed the most logical, compassionate idea in the world. He truly believed it. He had convinced himself that this monstrous arrangement was a noble sacrifice on his part. He saw the look on my face, and his expression faltered. Evelyn, it's the only way to keep our family intact, to give our son the life we always planned for him. I know it's a lot to ask. A lot to ask. Olivia's voice cut through the air like a whip. You want her to raise your love child as a daily living reminder of your betrayal. You are the most selfish, narcissistic human being I have ever met. This isn't about me. It's about the children. Liam shot back, his composure cracking. No, Liam, I said, finding my voice at last. It was calm, clear, and colder than a winter frost. This is all about you. It's about you keeping your perfect house, your perfect job, and your perfect reputation. It's about you controlling every piece on the board, including the women you've destroyed and the children you've created. I stood up, the movement slow and deliberate. My belly was a firm, round shield. Inside, my son kicked, as if he too could feel the wrongness of this conversation. There will be no arrangement, I stated. There will be no happy blended family born from your lies. You have made your choice. You have created this situation. You will not make me a party to your grotesque solution. The hope in his eyes died, replaced by a flicker of something else. Anger. The anger of a man who was not getting his way. You're being emotional, Evelyn, he said, his tone condescending. You're not thinking clearly. Oh, I am thinking more clearly than I have in 5 years, I retorted. I see you, Liam. For the first time, I see exactly who you are. I pointed to the door. My sister was right. We're seeing a lawyer. Contact me through them from now on. He left, slamming the door behind him. The sound echoed the final violent break of our marriage. The proposition hung in the air between me and Olivia, a testament to Liam's staggering arrogance. He hadn't just cheated. He had tried to rewrite the rules of morality to suit his own needs, expecting me to be a willing, silent accomplice. The fight was just beginning, and I knew it would be the fight of my life. The weeks that followed were a cold war, fought through lawyers and agonizingly stilted text messages about logistical necessities. I retained the services of a formidable divorce attorney named Catherine Albright, a woman with a reputation for being as compassionate with her clients as she was merciless with their opposition. Olivia stayed for another week, helping me change the locks, pack a few of Liam's boxes, and scrub the house of his presence until only the ghost of him remained. Liam denied his perfect solution, did not retreat gracefully. He began a campaign of psychological warfare. He'd send me articles about the negative effects of divorce on children. He'd leave long, rambling voicemails alternating between declarations of undying love and accusations of my being vindictive and cruel. But the most insidious part of his campaign involved Sophia. She started texting me. At first, they were cloyingly apologetic. Evelyn, I am so deeply sorry for the pain I've caused. Liam told me what a wonderful person you are. I blocked the number. A new one would appear a few days later. The tone began to shift from apologetic to demanding. Liam says you're not being reasonable. This baby is his. It has a right to know its father and its brother. You can't keep Liam from his child. I have rights, you know. It was clear Liam was feeding her a narrative where I was the villain, the cold-hearted wife standing in the way of his noble attempt to do the right thing. He was manipulating both of us, pinning us against each other while he played the tragic hero caught in the middle. The stress was immense. I had trouble sleeping. My blood pressure, which had been perfect throughout my pregnancy, started to creep up. Dr. Miller, my OB-GYN, put me on modified bed rest. Her kind eyes filled with a concern that went beyond my physical health. Stress is the enemy right now, Evelyn, she'd said gently. Whatever is going on at home, you need to find a way to insulate yourself and this baby from it. Insulation felt impossible. Liam still had financial control. Our main bank account was a joint one, and while Ms. Albright was fighting to have assets frozen and an emergency support order put in place, the legal system moved at a glacial pace. I watched our balance dwindle at an alarming rate. Large sums were being transferred out, labeled simply legal fees or personal expenses. I knew he was giving money to Sophia, setting her up in a new apartment, funding the life he had destroyed ours to create. One afternoon, seeking a distraction, I logged onto our shared home computer to work on a design project. I noticed Liam was still logged into his personal email. I hesitated for only a moment. Morality felt like a luxury I could no longer afford. My finger hovered over the mouse, and then I clicked. It was a sewer of lies. There were emails between him and Sophia, filled with his promises of a future together, painting me as an unstable, hormonal shrew who would come around eventually. He called her his true love, his soulmate words he had whispered to me countless times. The hypocrisy was nauseating. But then I found something else, something worse. There was a chain of emails between Liam and a man named Benjamin Carter. I recognized the name. Ben Carter was a notorious corporate raider, a rival from another firm, Sterling Wentworth's biggest competitor. The emails were cryptic, referencing a project and sensitive data. Attached to one was a heavily encrypted file, but the most damning thing was the calendar entries. For the past year, Liam had dozens of scheduled lunches and evening meetings with BC. They corresponded with the nights he had told me he was working late, the nights he had really been with Sophia. It didn't make sense. Why would he be meeting secretly with a top rival? A cold dread washed over me. This was bigger than an affair. Liam wasn't just cheating on me, he was cheating on his company. The personal finances folder on the laptop, the one he had password protected. A jolt went through me. I tried a few passwords. Our anniversary, my birthday, his mother's maiden name. Nothing. Then on a whim, I typed Sophia 1. Access granted. It wasn't a surprise for me. It was a ledger. Detailed spreadsheets showed wire transfers to an offshore account, cross-referencing the dates with the emails to Ben Carter. I saw a clear pattern. After every secret meeting with BC, a large sum of money was deposited. Liam was selling company secrets. His ambition wasn't just about climbing the ladder. It was about burning the whole building down for a profit on the side. His affair with Sophia wasn't just a personal failing. It was a cover, a convenient, all-consuming drama to distract from the corporate espionage he was committing. My hands were shaking. This man, my husband, was a complete stranger, a criminal. The baby kicked hard, a sharp, insistent reminder of what was at stake. This wasn't just about divorce anymore. It was about escape. It was about protecting my son from the toxic fallout of a man who was systematically destroying everything he touched. I copied the entire folder onto a thumb drive, my heart pounding in my ears. I emailed Catherine Albright with a single urgent sentence. "We need to talk immediately. I have proof of criminal activity." As the weeks crawled by and my due date loomed closer, a strange calm settled over me. The knowledge of Liam's deeper betrayal was horrifying, but it was also clarifying. There were no more grey areas, no more moments of weakness where I mourned the man I thought I had married. That man never existed. I was mourning a ghost. Liam, oblivious to my discovery, continued his campaign. His final move was the most audacious. 2 weeks before my due date, a legal document arrived via courier. It was from his lawyer. It was a preemptive custody agreement. It laid out in cold legal terms his plan. It named both me and Sophia Collins as the mothers of his 2 children. It proposed a joint custody arrangement where both children would spend equal time in our respective homes once they were older, but for the first year it stipulated that the baby boy I was carrying would remain with me and the baby girl Sophia was carrying would remain with her. And it contained one final stunning clause. It demanded a court-ordered postnatal DNA test for both children. To establish paternity unequivocally for the legal record, and to ensure the fair and accurate allocation of child support and parental rights. He was using the power of the law to formalize his delusion. He wanted a piece of paper from a lab to legitimize the chaos he had created. Catherine Albright was livid. "This is a scare tactic. It's harassment. He's trying to force your hand to make you accept his narrative." "Let him," I said, my voice steady. "Let him have his test. Let him have his moment in court. Let's get everything out in the open." Because I had a secret of my own now. A thumb drive full of truths that would blow his carefully constructed world to pieces. He thought a DNA test was his ultimate weapon. He had no idea it was about to become the instrument of his own undoing. The call came on a sweltering July morning. It wasn't my water breaking or the start of contractions. It was Liam. His voice was a strange mix of panic and exhilaration. "It's happening, Evelyn," he said, breathless. "Sophia's in labour at St. Peter's downtown. I'm heading there now." "That has nothing to do with me, Liam," I replied, my hand resting on my own taut belly. My son was due any day now, and the thought of being in the same hospital as them was nauseating. "Of course it does," he insisted. "This is the birth of my daughter, our son's sister. I thought you should know." I hung up. But the universe, it seemed, had a twisted sense of humour. That very evening, my own contractions began sharp and insistent. By midnight, Olivia was speeding me down the highway, and my heart sank as she pulled into the parking garage of the only hospital my insurance covered for high-risk pregnancies, St. Peter's. My son Noah was born at 6:17 a.m. after a grueling 14-hour labour. He was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a thatch of dark hair, and my eyes. Holding him for the first time, all the noise of the past few months, the betrayal, the anger, the fear melted away. There was only this tiny, warm, breathing miracle in my arms. My world, which had been shattered suddenly, had a new centre, a new, powerful purpose. Olivia was my fierce guardian fielding calls and standing guard at the door to my private room. But on the second day, a nurse came in, her expression apologetic. "Mrs. Peterson, your husband is here. He's with..." Another patient, but he's insisting on seeing you. He has a court order. My blood ran cold. I looked at Noah sleeping peacefully in his bassinet beside my bed. Let him in, I said, my voice hard. Liam entered, looking tired but triumphant. He was holding a file folder. He's beautiful, Evelyn, he said. His eyes flicking to Noah. It was a perfunctory compliment. His mind clearly elsewhere. What do you want, Liam? He opened the folder and slid a document onto my bedside table. It was the court order for the day test. The lab technician is here. Sophia already agreed. Her daughter Arabella was born yesterday. She's just down the hall. We can get this done now. A simple cheek swab from me, you and Noah. Sophia and Arabella have already done theirs. He was actually beaming, as if this were a happy family milestone. The sheer audacity of it was breathtaking. He was forcing a confrontation in the one place I should have felt safe, turning the birth of my son into a legal proceeding. Fine, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. I signed the consent form. The technician, a kind-faced man named George, came in and performed the swabs with quiet efficiency. He swabbed my cheek, then gently rubbed the cotton stick inside Noah's tiny mouth. He sealed the samples in biohazard bags, labeled them with barcodes, and left. Liam lingered. The results will be expedited, he said, puffing out his chest. My lawyer made sure of it. Should have them by tomorrow morning. Then we can finally move forward, put this mess behind us, and figure out a real plan for our children. Our children. The phrase made my skin crawl. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. I held Noah close, breathing in his newborn scent, trying to create a bubble of peace around us. Olivia stayed with me, a silent, supportive presence. The next morning, Dr. Miller came into my room. She wasn't alone. Following her was a woman in a severe grey suit, whom I didn't recognize, and behind her, Liam. His face was a mask of thunderous rage, and behind him, looking terrified and clutching a blanket, was Sophia. Evelyn, Dr. Miller began, her voice gentle but firm. There's been a development. The results of the paternity test came back. Ms. Albright, your lawyer, is on her way, but Liam insisted we convene immediately. She gestured to the woman in the suit. This is a hospital administrator. My heart hammered against my ribs. I looked at Liam. His eyes were burning holes into me. What did you do? He snarled, his voice a low growl. What are you talking about? I asked, confused. The administrator cleared her throat and looked down at the paper in her hand. It was the lab report. We have the results of the court-ordered paternity test for Mr. Liam Peterson and the two infants, Noah Peterson and Arabella Collins. She took a deep breath. The test confirms with 99.999% certainty that Liam Peterson is the biological father of the male infant, Noah Peterson. A wave of relief so profound, it almost made me dizzy, washed over me. I looked at Noah, my perfect son. Of course, he was Liam's. Despite everything, that was a fact I'd never doubted. But then I looked at Liam's face. It wasn't relief. It was pure, unadulterated fury. His rage wasn't directed at Sophia. It was directed at me. And I didn't understand why. Read the rest of it. Liam commanded, his voice shaking. The administrator hesitated, then continued, her voice clinical and detached. The test for the female infant, Arabella Collins, was also conclusive. She looked up, her gaze flicking between Liam and a pale, trembling Sophia. Liam Peterson is excluded as the biological father of the infant Arabella Collins. The probability of paternity is 0%. The silence in the room was absolute, a vacuum that sucked all the air out. 0%. I stared at Liam. His triumphant plan, his legacy, his entire grotesque arrangement had just been vaporized by a single, undeniable scientific fact. The child he had destroyed our marriage for, the child he was ready to force into my home, was not his. Sophia let out a strangled sob, sinking into the visitor's chair. Liam's face was a terrifying sight. The color had drained from it, leaving a pasty greyish pallor. His jaw worked silently, his eyes wide with disbelief and horror. He turned slowly, his movements stiff and robotic, to face Sophia. "What is this?" he whispered, the sound raw and broken. "What kind of game are you playing?" Sophia was weeping openly now. "Liam, I... I can explain. Explain!" He roared, the sound echoing in the small hospital room, making Noah stir and whimper in his sleep. "Explain what? That you've been lying to me for almost a year, that you let me blow up my entire life for a baby that isn't even mine." His world wasn't just imploding. It was being revealed as a fiction he had co-authored with a liar. The carefully constructed narrative of his tragic noble burden was gone. All that was left was the ugly truth. He was just a common cheat who had been played for a fool. And in that moment, seeing the utter devastation on his face, I felt nothing. No pity, no satisfaction, no triumph. Just a vast, empty coldness. The DNA test he had demanded as a weapon had backfired in the most spectacular way imaginable. The immediate aftermath was chaos. Liam's roar had brought nurses running. The hospital administrator, looking flustered, tried to restore order, insisting this was a private matter that needed to be taken elsewhere. Liam was beyond reason. He was pacing the small room like a caged animal, his face a contorted mask of fury and humiliation. "Whose is it?" he spat at Sophia, who was hunched in the chair, sobbing. "Tell me whose baby it is." Sophia just shook her head, her words muffled by her hands. "It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter," he laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "I destroyed my marriage for you. I was going to raise that child. I have a nursery, waiting. I have a trust fund set up. Tell me who the father is." It was then that my lawyer, Catherine Albright, arrived. She took one look at the scene, Liam raging, Sophia weeping, the administrator wringing her hands, and took complete control. "Mr. Peterson," she said, her voice like steel, "you are causing a disturbance and distressing my client and her newborn son. I suggest you and Ms. Collins take this conversation out into the hallway. Now." Liam shot her a venomous look, but seemed to realize he had lost all control. He jabbed a finger at Sophia. "You! Outside! Now!" He stormed out of the room, and Sophia, after a single terrified glance at me, scurried after him. The silence they left behind was a relief. Catherine closed the door firmly. "Are you all right, Evelyn?" I nodded, clutching Noah a little tighter. "I'm fine. I'm stunned." "He demanded the test," Catherine said, shaking her head in disbelief. His own lawyer advised against it, said it was overly aggressive. But he insisted. He wanted it on the record. She gave a short, mirthless laugh. Well, he certainly got what he asked for. The shouting in the hallway escalated. We couldn't make out all the words, but the venom in Liam's tone was unmistakable. Then we heard a new voice, a man's voice, calm and deep, cutting through Liam's tirade. A few moments later, there was a sharp cry from Sophia, and then footsteps hurrying away. The door to my room opened again. It wasn't Liam. It was a man I vaguely recognized from pictures in business journals. He was tall, impeccably dressed, in a tailored suit that looked out of place in a maternity ward, with silvering temples and cold, calculating eyes. It was Benjamin Carter. He looked at me, then at the bassinet where Noah slept. A flicker of something unreadable passed through his eyes. "Mrs. Peterson," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "My apologies for the intrusion. I believe your husband and I have some business to discuss." He turned and left as quietly as he had appeared, leaving a trail of expensive cologne and unanswered questions in his wake. Catherine and I just looked at each other, the same stunning realization dawning on us at the same time. The secret meetings, the BC on the calendar, the man Sophia had been protecting. It all clicked into place. The affair wasn't just an affair. Sophia hadn't been cheating on a boyfriend with Liam. She had been cheating on her lover, Benjamin Carter, with Liam. Or perhaps she and Carter had planned the entire thing. An hour later, a nurse quietly told us that Liam had left the hospital. Sophia Collins and her baby Arabella had been discharged into the care of Benjamin Carter. The full story came out over the next few weeks, pieced together from Catherine's legal digging and a single desperate letter I received from Sophia. Sophia had been Benjamin Carter's long-term secret mistress. Carter was a patient, ruthless man. He knew Liam was a weak link at Sterling Wentworth, driven by greed and ego. He used Sophia as bait. She seduced Liam, and once she had him, Carter used the affair as leverage. He blackmailed Liam into feeding him insider information, sensitive data he used to undermine Sterling Wentworth and poach their biggest clients. Liam, trapped and terrified of me finding out about the affair, complied. The pregnancy was an accident. It was Carter's baby, but when Sophia told him, he saw an opportunity. He and Sophia concocted the story that the baby was Liam's. It was the perfect way to secure a hefty long-term payday from a man they were already bleeding dry. They would let Liam set up a trust fund, pay for a new life for Sophia, all for a child that wasn't his. It was a long con, and Liam had fallen for it completely. The day test was the one thing they hadn't counted, and a wrench thrown into their meticulous plan by Liam's own arrogance. The thumb drive I had copied was the final nail in Liam's coffin. When Catherine presented the evidence of wire fraud and corporate espionage to Sterling Wentworth's board, they didn't just fire him, they pursued federal charges. The last time I saw Liam was across a sterile table in Catherine's office. He was there to sign the divorce papers. He looked like a stranger, gaunt, broken, stripped of all his swagger. The anger was gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed despair. "I lost everything," he whispered, not looking at me. "My job, my reputation. I'm facing prison time. Carter and Sophia are gone, disappeared." "You did this to yourself, Liam," I said, my voice holding no sympathy, only a tired finality. He finally looked up at me, and what I saw in his eyes was the deepest betrayal of all. It wasn't just about the affair or the money or the lies. It was that he saw none of it as his fault. "She played me Evelyn," he said, his voice pleading for me to understand, to validate him one last time. It was all a setup. I was a victim too. And in that moment, I knew there was nothing left to salvage, nothing left to mourn. He couldn't see that he wasn't a victim. He was the architect of his own destruction. His greed made him vulnerable. His ego made him blind. And his cruelty to me was the one choice that was entirely his own. I signed the papers, without a word, pushed them across the table, and stood up. I walked out of that office, out of that life, and didn't look back. I was walking toward Noah, toward a future that was finally blessedly mine to write. 2 years later, the Charlotte skyline looked different from the window of my new apartment. It was a smaller place, a loft in a revitalized arts district, filled not with curated perfection, but with the happy, beautiful chaos of life with a toddler. Building blocks were scattered on the polished concrete floor. Noah's finger paintings were taped to the fridge, and the air smelled of coffee and cinnamon toast. I had my own small architectural firm, now specializing in converting old industrial spaces like mine into sustainable, family-friendly homes. It was thriving. The work was challenging and fulfilling, and it was all mine. Noah was a whirlwind of energy and laughter. He had Liam's dark hair, but my smile and my calm, observant nature. He was my sun, my moon, and all my stars. Our life was simple, and it was more beautiful than the most perfectly designed house. Olivia visited, often marveling at the change in me. "You're lighter, Evie," she said one afternoon, watching as Noah tried to fit a square block into a round hole. "Like you finally put down a weight you didn't even know you were carrying." She was right. The weight of Liam's lies, his expectations, his drama, it was gone. I heard about him sometimes through the grapevine. He took a plea deal and served 18 months in a low-security federal prison for the corporate espionage. He was out now working a menial job somewhere up north, his name a permanent stain in the financial world. He paid his court-ordered child support for Noah on time every month, a silent electronic transfer from a man who was little more than a biological data point. He had never once asked to see his son. Perhaps the shame was too great, or perhaps, as I suspected, he had never truly been capable of selfless love in the first place. As for Sophia and Benjamin Carter, they had vanished as ghosts do. I imagined they were on a beach somewhere living off the money they'd siphoned, but I didn't waste my energy thinking about them. They were characters in a story that was over. One evening, as I was tucking Noah into bed, he pointed to a framed picture on his nightstand. It was of me and him taken in the park a week earlier, both of us laughing into the camera. "Mommy and Noah," he said, his small finger tapping the glass. "That's right, sweet boy," I whispered, kissing his forehead. "Just me and you." And as I switched off his light and stood in the doorway, watching his small chest rise and fall in the soft glow of his nightlight, I felt a profound sense of peace. My life wasn't the one I had planned. It was better. It was real. It was a life built not on a fragile, perfect facade, but on the unbreakable foundation of a mother's love and the quiet, resilient strength I had found in the wreckage. I had survived the storm, and the dawn was more beautiful than I ever could have imagined. Life continued its peaceful forward march. Noah was approaching his third birthday, a boisterous, inquisitive boy who filled our loft with a delightful cacophony of questions about why the sky was blue and whether squirrels dreamed. My firm landed a major contract to redesign a historic textile mill into a community arts centre, a project that was both a professional triumph and a personal passion. The past, with all its sharp edges, had been worn smooth by the gentle, relentless tide of everyday life. I had come to believe it was buried for good. Then a letter arrived. It wasn't in Liam's familiar, arrogant script. The envelope was a heavy cream-coloured cardstock, the kind used for formal invitations or condolences. The return address was in a wealthy, old-money suburb of Charlotte. I knew well the neighbourhood where Liam's parents lived. My hand trembled slightly as I slit it open with my letter opener. The handwriting inside was elegant, feminine, and shaky. It was from Judith Peterson, Liam's mother. I hadn't spoken to her since the day before the divorce was finalised, a stilted phone call where she had offered a tearful, shame-filled apology for her son's behaviour. "My dearest Evelyn," the letter began, "I know I have no right to ask anything of you. The grace you have shown our family by simply moving on with your life is more than we could have ever deserved. I write to you now, not as Liam's mother, but as a grandmother who is desperate. Liam's father, Robert, is very ill. He has advanced pancreatic cancer, and the doctors have given him only a few months. His deepest regret, the thing that keeps him awake at night, is that he has never met his only grandson. He has a photograph of Noah, one I found online from a feature about your firm. He keeps it by his bed. Evelyn, I am begging you. Would you consider allowing us to meet Noah just once? It would bring a dying man a moment of peace. Liam would not have to be there if you prefer. This is not about him. It is about a grandfather's love for a child he has never known. With deepest humility, Judith Peterson." I read the letter 3 times, my heart, a confused drum against my ribs. My first immediate instinct was a visceral no. The Petersons were a doorway to a part of my life I had walled off. They were inextricably linked to Liam, to the pain, to the hospital room, to the lies. Protecting Noah was my prime directive, and my instincts screamed that this was a threat, a crack in the fortress of peace I had so carefully constructed. I called Olivia. Her reaction was what I expected. "Absolutely not," she said, her voice sharp. "It's a manipulation, Evie. A guilt trip. They had their chance to be grandparents. Their son blew it. You owe them nothing. Don't you dare let them use a dying man to get their hooks back into you and your son." Her words resonated with the fearful part of me. But another part, a quieter, more compassionate voice that had grown stronger in the past 2 years, felt a pang of sympathy. I thought of Robert Peterson, a man who had always been kind to me, a quiet, gentle presence overshadowed by his wife's society ambitions and his son's aggressive drive. I pictured him frail and fading, looking at a grainy printout of my son's face. Was it fair to punish him for Liam's sins? More importantly, was it fair to Noah? Someday he would be old enough to understand. He would know he had a father, grandparents, a whole other family. Would he resent me for denying him the chance to meet them even once? Keeping him from Liam was a clear-cut matter of safety and emotional health. But keeping him from a dying grandfather felt cruel. For a week, I was tormented. I would watch Noah sleep, his face so peaceful and innocent, and feel a fierce wave of protectiveness. Then I would read Judith's letter again and feel a wave of sorrow. This wasn't a test of my defenses, I realized. It was a test of my healing. Was my peace so fragile that a single supervised meeting could shatter it? Or was it strong enough to allow for an act of grace? I finally made my decision. I would do it, but it would be on my terms, and my terms only. I called Judith. Her voice was thin with anxiety. "I will bring Noah to see his grandfather," I said, my tone calm and firm. "We will meet you at your house for 1 hour this Saturday. I will be present the entire time. Liam is not to be there. If I see him, we will turn around and leave immediately. This is a one-time visit, Judith. It is not the beginning of a new arrangement. It is an act of compassion for Robert. Do you understand?" Her sob of gratitude was my answer. That Saturday, I dressed Noah in his little khaki pants and a blue polo shirt. I explained to him that we were going to visit a man who was his daddy's daddy, and that he was very old and sick, and we had to be very gentle. The Peterson house was just as I remembered it, a grand, imposing brick mansion that always felt more like a museum than a home. Judith met us at the door, her eyes red-rimmed but filled with a desperate gratitude that was painful to witness. She looked older, smaller than I remembered. She led us through the cavernous foyer into a sunroom at the back of the house. Robert Peterson was there sitting in a large armchair, a plaid blanket over his legs. The change in him was shocking. He was skeletal, his skin pale and translucent. But his eyes, when they landed on Noah, lit up with a brilliant, undeniable light. "Well, hello there, young man," he whispered, his voice a dry rustle. Noah, normally so boisterous, seemed to sense the fragility of the situation. He stood quietly by my leg, clutching my hand. I knelt down beside him. "Noah, this is your grandfather," Robert first said softly. Slowly, Noah released my hand and took a tentative step forward. Robert held out a shaky hand. Noah looked at it, then reached out and placed his small, chubby hand in his grandfather's thin one. A tear rolled down Robert's cheek. For the next 45 minutes, we sat in that sunroom, and I watched a grandfather meet his grandson. He showed Noah his collection of ship models in glass bottles. He told him stories about being a boy and fishing in a lake. Noah, in turn, told him all about squirrels and their dreaming habits. It was a scene of quiet, simple beauty, and I felt the last bit of bitterness in my heart toward this family begin to dissolve. With 15 minutes left in our allotted hour, Judith touched my arm. "Evelyn," she whispered, her eyes pleading. "There is one more thing. Liam is here. He is in the garden. He has agreed to all of your terms. He won't come inside. He just wants to see his son. Please." My body went rigid. A deal was a deal. But then I looked at Robert, his face alight with a joy I knew he hadn't felt in years. Denying this now felt like a petty cruelty. "He stays in the garden," I said through gritted teeth. "We will say our goodbyes to Robert and walk out the back door. He can see him from a distance." We said our farewells. Robert clutched my hand. "Thank you, Evelyn," he breathed. "You are a good woman, a better woman than my son ever deserved." I led Noah out onto the stone patio, and there, standing at the far end of the perfectly manicured lawn by a rose trellis, was Liam. The slick, confident executive was gone. The man standing there was thin, almost gaunt. His expensive suit was replaced by simple jeans and a worn button-down shirt. His hair had thinned, and there were deep lines of exhaustion and regret etched around his eyes. He looked lost. He looked broken. He just stood there about 30 feet away, his hands shoved in his pockets. He didn't speak. He didn't move closer. He just watched as Noah chased a butterfly across the grass. His eyes, the same dark eyes as his son's, were filled with a profound, gut-wrenching sorrow. It wasn't the manipulative pleading of the past. It was the raw, silent agony of a man staring at the ruins of his own life, at the beautiful child he was a stranger to. For the first time, I looked at Liam and felt not anger, not fear, but a vast aching pity. He had no more power over me. He was just a sad story, a cautionary tale. Noah, oblivious, toddled a few feet in his direction. Liam took a half step forward, an involuntary motion, then stopped himself as if hitting an invisible wall. He knew the rules. "It's time to go, sweet boy," I called to Noah, my voice steady. As I took Noah's hand and led him away, I glanced back one last time. Liam was still standing there, a solitary figure among the roses, watching us go. He raised a hand in a small, hesitant wave, not to me, but to the son he would never know. And for the first time, I didn't feel the need to run. I simply turned and walked toward my car, toward my life, leaving him behind in the fading afternoon light. The past was no longer a ghost that haunted me. It was just a story, and I had finally written the last page. The story of Evelyn Liam and the lie that unraveled everything is a powerful reminder that sometimes the deepest betrayals come not from our enemies, but from those we trust with our hearts. It shows us that truth, no matter how painful, is a force more powerful than any lie, and that a person's true character is revealed not in their carefully crafted plans, but in how they react when those plans fall to dust. Evelyn's journey from a trusting wife to a resilient single mother is a testament to the incredible strength found in the face of devastation. What would you have done in Evelyn's shoes? Could you ever forgive such a multi-layered betrayal? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you and you want to hear more real-life tales of love loss and the shocking twists that change everything, please give this video a like, share it with someone who appreciates a powerful story, and be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update.